Hello, Evolutionary Astrologer Bryan Colter here for your horoscope report for the upcoming new moon in Gemini that happens on May 22nd. And I'm filming this on May 21st, just in time, but even if you watch it a few days after, it still applies, because I'm going to be describing really the energy of the next couple weeks. So, what do we have here? But Gemini on steroids. Yes, new moon in Gemini. And implicit in that is that the sun is currently in Gemini. The moon is next to the sun, the new moon, also in Gemini. And we also have Mercury in Gemini. And what makes this so profound is that Mercury is said to be the planet that rules over this sign. So it's in its own home turf, in its own zone of power. So massive mercurial Geminian dose that we're all feeling right now. And then Mercury's right next to Venus, which is in retrograde, also in Gemini, obviously. So 4 planets in Gemini. We got 10 things we're calling planets here, so 40% Gemini energy. But, you could probably call it 50%, just give it a little bump just because this planet Mercury is in its own sign. So 50% Gemini. It's kind of dumb to break it down mathematically like that, but I suppose it's semi-useful to say. Just describing Gemini will get us so far as to where we're at now in terms of our understanding. Now, Gemini is known as a mutable sign. I'll describe what Gemini means in a second, but it's also known as a mutable sign, along with Sagittarius, Virgo, and Pisces, the 4 mutable signs of the zodiac. So we have 4 planets in the mutable sign of Gemini, and then we have 2 additional planets in Pisces, so 6 of the 10 planets in mutable signs. So Gemini, mutability, mutable, that derives from the word mutate, being able to adapt, to evolve, to learn, to be, mobile and shifty, improvise. So we have a lot of adaptability going on now. And mobility, I'd say. Hyperactivity. Imagine, it's like, gosh, I've been, kind of said this in the last video. We've been cooped up in our caves for the last few months. Everybody's been, stir crazy. That's an understatement. So now, in a lot of places, not all, but a lot of places, we're able to be free. Hence all the movement, all the exploration. Finally able to follow our own threads of curiosity. If we're to boil down, one major component or quality of character with Gemini, it's innate curiosity. It's like, think of all the things you've been, interested in doing that you haven't been able to over the last couple months, and then being able to move about and do those things. All of a sudden, freedom. Gemini ultimately is a freedom-seeking sign, Freedom of movement, freedom of expression through communication, freedom to learn what we want to learn. It's also the sign of learning. It's also a fun and playful and chatty sign. So a lot of energy, fast energy, moving right now. If you think about it, Mercury rules Gemini. Mercury goes around the sun pretty quickly, once every 88 days. The fastest planet. So think quick, fast action, commerce, movement. Even here where I live in Portugal, in a couple of weeks here, June 1st, they're going to open all businesses, even restaurants. So I don't know if we're still going to have to wear masks, probably, and maybe social distancing to a certain degree. But, the veils have been lifted, or the rules are starting to alleviate a little bit. The pressure starting to alleviate so that we can move about, Now, the shadow side of Gemini is kind of just spinning in circles, spinning too many plates. So there's that potential too as we finally get access to this hyperactive energy. I would say a lot of people will be practicing their gift of gab, even if they're introverted. Imagine we're actually able to interact with humans face to face out in the world, and even for introverts, it's like, I've really loved my alone time, but hey, too much of a good thing becomes a bad thing. So connecting, of course, I know, especially for myself, I think my social skills are a bit rusty, but I'm an introvert, and I'm kind of like, I've had enough, I'm ready to connect, at least have one conversation with an actual human. So everything I just said about all this mobility, commerce, probably a lot of short distance travel, being defined by the immediate and the emergent, things happening so fast, like the feeling as though, when you drive down a busy freeway a little too quickly, late for a critical appointment, you can't take your eyes off the road. That's kind of Gemini energy. It's active. And I think we've been thirsty for that sort of energy, which is good. And everything I just said, I think a lot of astrologers have already said or would agree with, be nodding their head. It's pretty common knowledge amongst at least astrologers when describing Gemini energy, mutable energy. But as we step down to a deeper level, levels that we'd find underneath the paradigms of more conventional astrological understanding, we dig deeper into the sign of Gemini. Yes, it's the sign of communication. Underlying communication is thought. Underlying thought is perception. I probably talked about it in my last video. Really, this whole month has been defined by Gemini. Okay? So, perception. Working with the energy of Gemini proactively, meaning working with it instead of either against it or ignoring the energies flowing through us altogether. Ultimately, what's the evolutionary intention? That's the key question with evolutionary astrology. The evolutionary intention is for us to perceive reality more clearly. And this is so timely, okay? Because what are called the nodes of the moon just changed sign at the beginning of the month, okay? Right as a lot of these planets started going into Gemini. So a powerful coincidence with the planets entering Gemini this month, along with the nodes of the moon entering Gemini Sagittarius axis. Okay, what the heck does that mean? Well, I talked a bit about it in the last video. The nodes of the moon, okay, only moving out of sign or into a new sign once every year and a half, suggests a pretty radical shift in that direction for all of us, for the collective. And I want to focus primarily on the north node of the moon, which is in Gemini here, since that's the theme. The north node represents where we're trying to get to karmically. Okay, it's collective karma. The karmic wave is breaking in this new direction. It's been in Capricorn Cancer for the last year and a half. That's a whole other subject. But now it's entering into this fire air sign, Sagittarius, Gemini. Describe it as a breath of fresh air. It has a kinetic energy to it. Okay, a lot of movement yet again. So we're heading our karmic medicine, the north node, we're heading towards Gemini, the sign of information and perception. So us as humanity are attempting to perceive reality more clearly. Okay? And of course, through the laws of synchronicity, the experiences we attract to ourselves by chance, we need to attract to ourselves certain experiences that support that karmic medicine, that learning curve, that lesson plan. So we'll attract to ourselves Gemini, lots of information. Okay? It's another major feature of this sign. And we're trying to get away from the south node in Sagittarius, at least the darker manifestations of Sagittarius, which is dogma, fixed set of ideologies and belief systems. Now, whatever we believe reality to be, it's not quite that. And anybody else, if anybody tells you differently, then they're suffering from a little bit of Sagittariusis, which is to say dogma, And all fixed belief systems have blinders. They don't see the total picture, okay? And of course, none of us see the total picture, but at least understanding that and looking at reality through a certain lens and allowing us to be more mutable, changeable, adaptable. Data in, okay? Whatever that data comes in, we allow our perception to shift and change. And of course, we attract to ourselves experiences that bring us data, that bring us information. Okay, that's very different than what we perceived, flies in the face of what we perceive reality to be previously. It's the next year and a half is about paradigm busting. And of course, we're breaking right outside, busting right outside the gates. The gun is fired and the horses are charging immediately right at the beginning of the race because information influx, the 4 planets in Gemini supporting the North Node in Gemini, right at the beginning of the North Node changing in that sign. So there's a couple other planets involved in this story. the two planets in Pisces that I mentioned earlier in that mutable sign. Neptune in Pisces and Mars in Pisces. We'll talk about Mars later. Let's focus on Neptune. So Neptune currently is in a very tight, what's called square aspect. It's a hard angle, 90-degree angle with the Mercury and the Venus. Okay. And some people call it a bad aspect, a square. I don't. It's just hard. It implies more friction. Okay. And Mercury and Neptune, when they come together, especially through a square, don't get along very well. Here we have the planet of information and data, Gemini, interacting with Neptune. And Neptune has a very watery feeling to it. Okay. So yes, we're getting an influx of data and hyperactivity, but it seems to be filtering through the murk of the Neptune energy. Okay. And it's tough to tell what is truth and what is not, is the way I read it. So there's a lot of truths out there. There's a lot of half-truths out there. And then there's a lot of falsehoods, just straight up lies. Okay? And Mercury square Neptune are classic for not knowing what the truth exactly is and trying to figure it out within a big data set, basically. So what are the truths and what are the falsehoods? How can we understand the deceit, the deception, and the lies? Even self-deception on our own part, since we're attempting to perceive reality more clearly. We can deceive ourselves, of course. So the name of this video, I almost called this video "The Truth is Out There," because I'm an X-Files fan. And that's true. The truth is out there. Okay, you just got to find it. And with Neptune in the mix, it's harder to figure it out. But I called it "The Truth is in Here." And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But last time Mercury and Neptune came together in an aspect to one another was in early April. Okay, late March, early April, when Mercury was in the sign of Neptune's Pisces. They were both in Pisces, and they were right next to each other in the sky. It's known as a conjunction. So that was the last time they interacted. But Mercury isn't very strong in Pisces, Neptune very strong in Pisces. So during that event, Mercury was kind of outgunned. And of course, there was a whole lot of deceit and deception then, a whole lot of half-truths, didn't know what to believe, learned that, gosh, who do I trust here? Not knowing who to trust and how to trust in that sort of environment where everything's so murky. So Mercury was outgunned. Now Mercury is much stronger in this square to Neptune. So the truth is winning. And how we find the truth is in here. Okay? The heart always knows. So going within to understand what the truth is. Part of it's rational too, part of it's discernment. I mean, Saturn in Aquarius is in a beautiful supportive trine to the moon and sun, so the planet of discernment. So, of course, use your discernment to understand what's a truth, what's a half-truth, and what's a flat-out lie. Yeah, that's part of it. But there's something else we're trying to find, and this is where we tap into, ultimately, in my opinion, the evolutionary intention of this energy is to perceive reality more clearly, but going within to do that. And the reason I say that is because the higher octave meaning of Neptune in Pisces, it's very transcendent, it's very spiritual, it deals with higher dimensions of reality. It's, especially when Neptune's in its own sign, it's about meditation. So leveraging meditation to go within and sitting with the information you learn and trying to feel the very subtle energetic texture differences between the truths and falsehoods so that you can find the truth within yourself. Mars in the mix, Mars square the sun and moon. Mars the war god. Warriors deal with warfare. So we're in an information war as we try to decipher within the murkiness between truths, half-truths, and falsehoods. We're in this information war. And in the heat of battle, we're attempting to perceive reality more clearly. And really the whole overarching theme of 2020, I've said it in many of my videos, the Great Awakening, so that we can become more free. But in order for us to become more free, the old structures have to collapse. Okay? The old methods of the powerful who want more power. One of their greatest assets or allies has been controlling the perception of the public. And how have they been doing that? Through media. That's another key Gemini word. Information warfare through media. And it's hitting this maximum crescendo now. And there's another war going on. Mars is in Pisces, the mystic, the dreamer, the poet. It's a very spiritual sign. Neptune in the spiritual sign. Neptune's a very spiritual planet. It's very transcendent. So the sign of the warrior, or the planet of the warrior rather, and the sign of the mystic. And there's another war going on, and it's spiritual warfare. Yes, it's an information war, but at the core, it's spiritual warfare. Because we're poised for a massive breakthrough in consciousness as we hit this age of Aquarius, okay, where we have much more freedom of information, freedom of technology. That's what we're headed into. And the positive consequence of that is that we have a higher level of consciousness. And the people who don't want that are at war with us for that happening. What is their main weapon? Information. Because controlling the information controls our perception of reality. There's another meaning with Mars in Pisces. It's the spiritual warrior. So there's, at least on stepping the energy down to a more personal level, and not so much about the collective. It's like, what do we do here? We help strengthen our inner warrior, our spiritual warrior, our resolve, and realize how strong we are, okay, how brave we are, or can be. And utilizing meditation, introspection, contemplation about ourselves, where we're at, taking the angel's point of view and understanding this is all happening for a reason, asking ourselves the question, what part do we want to play? How can I become stronger? How can I raise my consciousness? And taking warrior action, Mars is about being assertive, warrior action to, carve out that time every day to meditate so you can go within. Why? Because the truth is in here. And the more time you put in towards meditating, okay, the more you'll be able to tell the difference between the truth and the falsehoods out there, and how it sits with your own heart, with your own soul. The truth is in here, and the more you explore that, okay, the more in alignment you are with the way things actually are in the world. And that's the evolutionary intention, with the goal always being to expand our consciousness.